This meeting is being recorded.
So, we're here finally to get to talk about the book of the month for the month of November for the book club, which is A Darker Shade of Magic, which is right here, as you can see, because I'm not going to hold it up the entire time.
There you go.
Yay! I personally have a lot of thoughts on it. I know that you, Johnny, have a lot of thoughts on it as well, so I thought it would be fun to actually record this and have other people either disagree or agree with these thoughts, which is how this came about, as you can tell. To start off, it's going to be non-spoilery for those who haven't read the book and might want to. What are your thoughts about the book in general, like non-spoilery and like short summary of it? How would you describe it?
Well, I would say it's a decent book. I'd give it, if you were just wanting to read it as like a sort of casual entertainment, someone that doesn't read books that often but did enjoy fantasy stuff as they were, when they were growing up as a teenager, then 6.5 out of 10, 7 out of 10, something like that, because it is interesting. It's got the meat of a good story, but without the potatoes. It's got an interest. Like, if you are an avid book reader, if you're someone that reads all the time, I'd give it more like a 5 out of 10. You'd notice a lot of cracks and flaws in the story. You notice you want more from it, from what you get.
Yeah. But before I'm gonna interrupt you and say, like, before I forget, we probably should mention what the actual plot of the book is about. But essentially, so we have London and London and London and London. So the entire book is based on the concept that there exists 4 Londons, and that there are, or three and a half Londons, and that there are people who can travel, selected people who can travel between these worlds, as is explained in the book. And this story follows Kel, who is one of these people, and how his traveling between worlds and his desire for something more eventually gets him into a lot of trouble, as he picks up some forbidden magic and transports it across into one of the Londons where it's not supposed to be. If there's anything more, there are villains. Obviously, there are people who want the magic. There's the magic itself as a character. So without giving too much away, it's basically, these headphones keep falling out. Without giving too much away, that's basically the entire basic plot of the story. Do you have anything to add to that, Johnny? That I would say that is not spoilery, but enough to like entice people.
Well, it has the shell of like a fascinating world. It certainly makes you, it lures you into it. You're like, I want to know more, and I can definitely see why it probably was planned when they wrote it as a trilogy instead of just being, I might make this a trilogy after the first book, if that makes sense. A lot of books start that way.
Yeah.
I would say that the characters are hard to get attached to, because a lot of them, you don't really understand their motives. You don't really vibe with them, but they're still kind of interesting. And yeah, I would say the magical concepts that the book explores is quite cool. Okay. I'd say that's a strong point of the book. I like that side of things, but apart from that, I can't really say much more about it, and without giving much away in terms of spoilers. But it's a very finishable book. It's not like one that you'd read 2 chapters and go, It's designed in a way to make you want to read the next chapter. It's not by means of, oh my god, you can't put this down, but by means of, there's always a hook into the next chapter. There's always a thing that makes you go, well, you can't leave it there. I want to know what. Yeah,
I agree with that. I agree that the book is very, very finishable. I think. So I personally would say that if you're somebody who likes new magic systems, I think this is definitely something that you should check out. I think if you like the City of London, that is why I picked it up. is actually part of my book date that I picked up for the month of October from my books, from, well, my local bookshop. And I didn't know what the book was going to be. So it was talking about cross-dressing thieves, 3-4 Londons, magic. If those three things interest you, I think this book is worth picking up. And honestly, just to see what the hype is about, because I think that any book that has some sort of hype around it, there is a reason for it, whether it's right or wrong. That's debatable. So I personally would give it, on Goodreads, I gave it a 3 out of 5 because I think the magic system really pulls it out. It's a very unique concept from what I've read so far. But as we're going to discuss in this next bit, which is going to be very, very spoilery, there's a lot of issues that I found with the book from a lot of different other aspects. So without further ado, we're going to now start getting into the spoilery bits. So if you have not read the book and would like to, I would advise clicking off the video. If you've been warned, yeah, like go away. Otherwise, yeah, get ready for some hot tea as I have here, and we're gonna discuss some of the drawbacks of this book, or some, you know, interesting concepts, or yeah, just go full on spoiler. So, Jonny, you're gonna jump right into the hot topic, which is characters you liked and you didn't like, because oh boy, do I have things to say.
Right, favorite characters. I'm gonna go with Prince Rai as one of my favorites because he is consistent. You can tell his motives. You can tell they really sort of cement home the sort of royal upbringing, his attachment to Kel. You can tell he's a nice person, but he also loves being who he is.
Oh yeah.
He's just trying his best, you know. But like he was a good consistent thing that the plot needed.
Yeah.
You know, if you go back to them, is a good character to bounce dialogue off. They weren't gonna. There were a bit of continuity that the book at times sorely lacks, and I just sort of I like the descriptions. I like you can really picture the person. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I've got a genuine like image of this person, whereas a lot of the characters it's harder to picture like what they look like, what they sound like, that sort of thing. I like to imagine these things. I also quite liked the Dane twins. The king and queen. I thought that they were well written in terms of they're bad. They're very evil. They're very manipulative. They are power brokers. They got this that they got their throne by kicking and screaming and killing off everything and everyone.
Yes, okay. Like, you know, putting a soul seal on somebody, that definitely underlines the fact that they're really bad. Like just...
They are super bad, and it doesn't try and pretend that they're not. It's not like, you know, C-tier movie villain dialogue at times. It's like good A-tier, like you can tell the subtle manipulations, the subtle slights that they have in their speech, that sort of, I can't remember what the right word for it would be, but certainly overpowering, like I'm above you sort of speech that you'd get from them. I liked that. Even in the more courteous dialogue near the start of the book, you were like, I can tell these people I would not want to have a dinner with. I would want them in jail. But here they are. They're ruling white London.
I mean, I'm gonna add on to that and say, like, okay, so the Dane twins, right? I definitely agree with you, but my favorite villain would probably have to be, and my favorite character 100% has to be Holland. Like, I am so invested in Holland's story because this guy so far is just, we see that we're told that he's like this really angry, really evil, really mean, cruel person. And then we find out that he has a soul seal put on him by the Dane twins, and you're like, okay, Holland, I see you. There's probably some more story. Also, at the beginning, I was really hoping that he was actually interested in Rye, and then we find out that no, it was just to give him the stupid necklace. I was so upset about that. But I think Holland.
I thought that sorry to interrupt, but there's at the start of the book, you have Kel's assumption, like he'd done some deducing, that Holland was under some sort of control, but not really. Like he was being followed, or his actions were always being watched, because of his discussion with someone at a pub that he found out that this had happened to Holland, and he was like, oh, but then he finds out later on that it's the Soul Seal, which is a much bigger deal. That that's you can literally directly control this person. And that was a lot larger, so it made you jump from this person has their own particular, things going on, but they're being watched, and so maybe we don't really know what their genuine, feelings and thoughts are on matters, to being oh shit, he's being directly made a pawn. That sucks.
But I just like him as a just a feel, because I think one of the main, and we talked about this before, but one of the main things that this book lacks is character development. I think honestly it's so hard to connect to any of the characters, and I, as you know, I love shipping people, I love shipping characters, and I know that a book is good if I have two main characters which I ship, and that's why I can ship absolutely anyone with anyone, because those usually are my top two favorite characters. In this book, we have Kel, which is, our Antari who can travel between worlds, which is great. Guy has, like, superpowers, basically. And then we have
Lilia Bar.
No, it's not Lilia, it's Lila. It's a very weird name.
I was reading Lilia. It that the entire time.
No, it's not Lilia, no.
I'm literally
go ahead. I mean, like, I think it's Lila, but
it is Lila.
Okay.
God damn it. In my head, every time I was like, I read that as Lilia Bard.
No.
Blame dyslexia, but
no, but I also think the name
them being unmemorable.
Yeah, I think the name also it's a problem. Like, Lilia is so much easier to remember. Lila is a lot harder to pronounce. But anyway, so we have Lila, and I mean, you make sure that I'm not lying, but literally, because I was a bit ahead of you when I was reading the book. But when I hit Lila as a character, I was just ranting like this. I hate this character. I'm not connecting with her. Like, I don't like her. I don't understand her.
I remember the messages.
Yeah, it was so bad, because Lila's just, she's not. I think the entire problem of this book, which actually really comes up in the characters, is the fact that we have this great world, and we have these characters which are just there to take us from A to B and B to C and C to D, and there's no room in the book to breathe for the characters. Like, no character development, like no relationship building. Always every conversation has to be like, oh, the stone, or oh, I am super powerful Antari who doesn't have parents, or oh, there's evil and there's 4 Londons, or even oh, I have this magical coat and this is how I got it. There's no kind of like, oh, we're here having a beer, like chatting about just our relationship, or building about our relationship. And that, I think honestly the book really, so for me, I don't really have a least favorite character. That's the point, is that it's just I don't have a memorable character except for Holland, because Holland is invested, like, you actually get invested. Also, if Lilia turns out to be an Antari who has her power taken away, I am going to scream. I'm actually going to scream.
It's so typical.
Because
it's just, I'll hate it.
It's just so bad. Like, why and it also pops up. It's like, oh, by the way, you have a glass eye. It never alluded to that. It was just all of a sudden thrown in when you're like, oh, okay, I guess that makes you like that. Also, it's in Red London when she finds out, so it's kind of like, oh, well, I guess this is why she can travel between worlds, and like there's this kind of hint there. So I don't know, like, Also, I think it's your gripe as well, which is why I'm gonna ask you to like re-rant about this. But like how we get characters which are then just killed off immediately. Like we have characters thrown in, and then it's like, oh, by the way, you're dead. It's like, oh, I'm interested. No, you're dead. Or like, oh, you're dead now too. So
Yeah, it's my main gripe with the book. I mean, to tangent it, to keep it on characters, I think my least favorite character is a character that was well described and then never got used, which was Fletcher, who was this cool, sort of weird, motived, like trader guy
oh
who had
yeah,
been
yeah.
around. They described him well. He had a shop. He had all these stuff. He had found ways around different magical taboos. He'd collected things. I'm like, this is cool. And he's also got a grudge against the main character. And they could use this. No, they used him as a pointless sort of like an entirely expectable, like, oh, I'm sorry, I brought the royal guards here and you're on the
Yeah.
run. And sucks to be you. I'm still sore about that gambling game we had, and bye. And then they kill him. They literally like they walk out, and one of the royal guards shoots him, like or
Yeah.
something, like just stab, die, and then you don't ever find out why. Who was that? Was that a guard under control of the Danes? Was that just the royal guard going, I don't like this guy? Like, they're not going to use... They wrote such an interesting piece that would probably be interesting in the latter books. Like, I remember Fletcher. Oh, shit. And he's popped up again, and they have to make a deal with him for something, or that sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
they had a character they could use again, and they didn't. So he ends up becoming like my least favorite because you spent 2 chapters of POV on him,
Yeah.
and working with him and describing him, and then no, he's
And
gone.
his shop as well. Like they went into such detail about the shop and about the, I think the tattoos that he had on his arms,
Yeah.
because he was the one who did the forbidden magic, which is control people.
Mm.
And you were like, oh yeah, you know, as you pointed out, yeah, it's just I don't know. It was, or for example, coming back to again, I guess if we're going down this route, we have the oh, I forgot his name, so maybe if you remember the innkeeper or like the pub keeper in Grey London.
Baron.
Yeah, so Baron.
Interesting
Him.
character.
Yeah,
They're
also
dead.
dead. Also dead. Also, I guess also dead. There was also the merchant, like you know the really kooky merchant who comes in and who wanted to trade, wanted the bag of dirt essentially.
Yeah.
From
No,
Kel.
he was like an interested sort of upper class, like upper middle class guy from Grey London that had heard about the magic and the trades and things that got in the inn. He's like, tell me, show me, I want to. And I'm like, they could have used him. They brought him back, and then they didn't use him.
Oh no, and he's also dead probably because I think he was the one who like got.
Oh, he's not actually dead. I reread the chapter to make sure. He kind
Oh.
of walked up, and he saw that he was reapproaching the pub to go get his bag of dirt because it was the agreed upon date. And then they described that because there was barely any magic in Grey London,
Yeah.
the black, the sort of the living magic, shell zombie. I don't even really know how to describe them, to be honest, but the
We're
one
gonna
that
get
was
onto
still
the.
being used
Yeah, we're gonna
was
get onto the
crumbling
zombie
away.
magic. Is
And
just.
he gets to the pub and finds a pile of dust and goes, oh. And so they could have used that as an interesting hook of him seeing real magic or something and
Yeah.
going, oh shit, this is big deal. I need to look into this. And we could go back to Grey London at some point. You saw at the start of the book, which they never explored again, how like Prince George was kind of a bit disappointed with the other Londons and how they just sort of ignore them. And also that the fact that they don't have any magic and teach us and do stuff, and we can be a good ally. No, like he clearly has motives, like, and they're kind of unexplored but interesting. Like I think it's probably for power, but like a different kind to the Dane twins. But that could have made me want to go back to Grey London. I don't even want to now. There's nothing there.
There's literally we don't
There's
even know what it
nothing
looks
there.
like. We don't know what
describe
anything
the pub
looks like. Yeah.
and the inside of a room.
But I guess speaking of descriptions, actually, great into the next question that I had, which is to discuss, would be like, what do you think what your favorite scene was and least favorite scene? Which is difficult in this book because I have a gripe with that in general, which is I think this book is too short. I honestly think that, so I have a theory. So V.E.Schwab, if I'm pronouncing her, Victoria Schwab, she writes both young adult and adult fiction. And under this pen name, she is meant to be writing adult fiction. By the way, Goodreads doesn't agree. It considers this to be young adult as well. And the issue that I have with it is that it honestly feels like it got an adult rating only because of the fact that it's a bit gruesome in some aspects. Like, there's just more blood. Like, and I think maybe they swore a couple of times, but beyond that, the length is the same, the world building still the same, because usually in adult fantasy, those are chunky books. Like, if you look at, I mean, any adult fiction, the books are just larger. This is young adult fiction length, and it really, I feel, undersells the book in general, which is why it's the concept. Like, honestly, this book is held, I don't know about the series, but this book is held up by its concept. So for me, there's not actually like a favorite scene, but there are like scenes that I prefer. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna think about it some more. But what about Jonny? Jump in and just solve this one for me.
Well, favorites scene, I think I'm gonna give to Holland versus Kell, round 2, I might add. When they have a fight in Red London.
Yeah.
In the streets of Red London, because all of the magic descriptions and all of the what they do and the powers, I'm like, this is great. They've clearly put a lot of thought into this, and I'm quite clearly picturing and imagining it, and it's one of the first times in the book that I can properly imagine a scene unfolding in front of me, and I'm like, I can see them exchanging these and their counter techniques and their banter, and I'm like, geez, this is strong stuff.
Like,
this
literally.
is like end game stuff. But so I liked that. Least favorite, I'm hard pressed to find a least favorite scene.
I'm gonna beat you to it. I have one. I've thought of one.
None of them fall dramatically under par. Just there's a lot of scenes. That's how I'd put it.
For me, Lila Bard on the boat. Honestly, at the beginning.
Yes, that was
where by the way, this guy comes in and it's like, so she's living on a boat apparently at the beginning, and she walks in and she's like, oh, I thieved, she has the money, she's living there, she wants to be a captain, which is like this entire thing, which I'm looking forward to, because at the end we see her walking away into the ship, like the dock in Red London, and I'm excited because I think that could potentially bring us some new spiciness to the book. But we begin with her like in Grey London, living on this really dilapidated ship on the Thames with this guy who she pays rent to. I'm not even sure if he owns the ship or why she's paying rent to him, but anyway, he comes in and he's like, you got to pay rent. And she goes, oh, well, I haven't pickpocketed any like money. And she found a watch. She pickpocketed a watch instead. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he goes, well, you can pay in another way. And you're just like, of course we needed some rapiness in there, I guess, because that's literally, I'm not even using the word in any other meaning than what it was. But yeah, that was clearly what was intended. And she kills him, which, also is that. But I found that honestly, to begin that character with those scenes, it put me immediately on. I didn't find any sympathy for her. Like I didn't connect with her in any way, because it was, surely there must have been something else that you could have done, not for the killing, because that what he was trying to do was atrocious, but it was kind of like, I don't know, it really, that scene felt like really just a way to push her out of that boat to get her to the inn, so she could be in the same place as Kel when he finally arrives into Grey London, all that goes down. And yeah, like and to start that off for a character, I feel like it's such a disservice, because that did not catch your attention in any way. There was no positive connection to the character. You're like, okay, why would I care for a thief, right? A thief steals, and unless, usually thieves are, to even that out, are charismatic, are, you know, have this backstory that we know about why they're stealing. Instead, she's ambitious, she's poor, I guess, was what we get from the beginning. But even then, we don't even know how she got in that position. So essentially, we just see a thief stealing, and then she gets back to the boat, and you're like, well, why do I care? So that's my least favorite scene. I don't know what you think, but like, I have a lot of problems with a lot of the introduction bits of.
I'm gonna be honest. That is my least favorite scene.
I mean, you stole it by 5. Yeah.
Because by like the, you know, when you're a third of the way through the book, you've already forgotten about it.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes. That they try to write this sort of tense, emotional sort of situation, and I'm like, I don't connect with it yet. I haven't really met this character, and I don't like them yet. Like, I just think that there's, you know, you've only described them as a thief so far. Am I supposed to feel sympathy? And then, yep, no, it's just a way to push them out of the boat and into another place. And it felt like they could have begun at this other place. That didn't
if
have
they
to
wanted
happen.
to. Yeah. Instead, that's the issue. Instead, when she goes back to the inn, we discover about the relationship between her and Baron, right? And you're like, whoa, okay, this is used as to give some backstory between them. But then they kill him off. And it just makes no sense why, if you know, if it was so important for her to have this relationship with him, then why? I mean, again, I do feel like the entire point of it is that we need to have a couple of deaths to show the gravitas of the black magic.
Stakes.
So consequences, stakes, etc. Like, that's important. But then we have, again, both of the guards. So we have, by the way, the book starts off with these 2 guards that are, you know, absolute, just, you know, they are like best buddies with Ryzen and Kel. And who are they called? I'm so bad with names, actually. Again, I think this actually shows how fast these characters get killed off, if I can't remember any.
Parish and Gen. I think that was it.
Gen? Are you sure? Oh, anyway, so
I think it was G something.
So there was G something. But anyway, again, I think this actually proves the point spectacularly. So we get introduced to them. They're guarding Rye's room, and this is how we hear Rye and talking to Holland. And you're like, okay, these dudes, they're hanging out with Kel and Rye, and that's fine. That's great. More character development. They're used as black magic vessels as well. Like,
yeah.
Not even one of them, both of them. So you're effectively gotten rid of both of them. So out of all the new characters we've been introduced, we've essentially now whittled down to, well, the Dane twins are also dead, actually. So we have
none left.
Yeah, we have Kel, we have Leela.
The royal family.
Yeah, we have Rye, we have Holland, which I highly suspect this guy is not dead, because he was barely breathing and thrown into like the place where where magic is vicious and consuming and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, you know, he's alive, very alive.
One of my favorite, like, why are you doing this? He was like, rest now, and then sends him to to arguably a fate worse than death. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Let him die or something, or bring him back to life. You just, you know, showed the ability to. Like, no, just rest now. Go to the other world. That's clearly bad.
I mean, it's also
come back as some Voldemort like character later. I'm sure of it. He'll be like, I am the Dark Lord of the black magic.
Yeah, probably.
I have been made a vessel. I don't know.
I think the reasoning that I understood, they had to do that because they needed an Antari to to take the stone through. But I also understood that you could kind of, so that's why, Kel was ready to die and like go into the world, etc. But there's also, again, a plot convenience that Holland held on for so long. I think it would have been a lot more interesting to be like, actually, Holland died. He proper died. Like, his body died. And then Kel would have to do some, like, weird, like, smear his blood or something on Holland to, like, make the magic think he was alive. And then when he went through, it would work, obviously, because Antari blood. But when he went through and then Holland was resurrected by the black magic, you'd be like, oh, okay, that shows the power of it, and it's so much more believable. Here it's kind of like they fought in Red London, he held on this entire time, the entire battle.
Yep.
Anyway, it just, again, it seems like the way this book was written was, I have a really cool world, and I'm not saying anything because I personally, one of the plot, or one of the ideas that I have, is all world built. So far I have no characters to populate it, even though I love this world so much, and I'm trying very, very hard to avoid doing what this book is doing, which is essentially being like, let's explore this world and here are these characters, but I'm more interested in telling you about my clever idea than about the characters developing. And we as readers, the older I get, I love world building. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, why are they so popular? Because you have characters you love in a world you can relate and you can connect and you can interact with, but you need good characters to do that, and this just doesn't give us this. Oh, I'm so frustrated. This book had so much potential.
Destructive world building. It's self-destructive.
Yeah.
It's like, here's something cool. No. We won't go into that. And it makes you not want to go back to places. I think that's the problem. If it's a trilogy, you want to leave remnants so that when you're reading the next book, you go, ooh, and then you're like, you already have something to go back to explore more of.
Yeah.
You leave little threads. There's no threads. It's like they would cut them off. It's like, yeah. One of my biggest gripes of the book, I guess, was I really like the character of Holland. I feel like they didn't use him as he would think sometimes. There was a moment.
Go on, I'm interested. Holland, I'm Holland stan.
the most blaring one of this, which you kind of lose as you read the chapters, because it was a fast-paced section of the book. It's all panicked. When you think about it and you go back to it, so Kel and Holland and Lilia have a standoff. He's trying to kill Lilia to try and get Kel to come back.
Oh yeah.
Does they have a bit of a fight? Lilia knocks out Holland. They leg it back to Red London, and as Holland leaves Grey London, he questions Baron about what they knew about the other two, where'd they go, what happened. He's like, I don't know. Then he kills Baron and then goes to the other world. But his mission at this point is to retrieve the Black Rock, is to retrieve the stone.
Yeah, actually, good point. Yeah.
How would killing Baron help? He arguably that would make whoever has the stone not want to give it to you more. You'd use him as leverage. You would use him as, I'm going to kill your friend if you don't give me the bloody rock. No, he kills him out of spite. And you're like, I didn't take Holland at this point of the book to be the sadistic type, the sort of, I will kill more of your friends. Give me the stone. I can take your life. It kind of portrayed him as a bit psychopathic, really. It was like, he killed him and then went, that's going to make them want them to give me the rock. No, if I was the person with the rock and you've just killed my friend, I'm going to not give it to you. I'm going to hate you for life and keep running off with the rock.
I agree. You pointed that out, and I remembered that I also, because at the beginning, the way that I understood Holland, and when Kel also said that he was being controlled, I assumed or the way that the character was leading was that, this is a classic case, which is usually that people aren't by their nature sadistic or cruel or what have you. And he was doing everything that he was doing out of anger and fear and just pure soul control, right? And then we get this bit, and it was like, well, why did you do that? Because he wasn't withholding any information. I think it literally ends with him turning around and just like Baron going like, oh, and he turns around and he kills him. And it was really a shock because Holland wasn't sadistic enough so far to seem that cruel. You never bought into, because again, if you introduce the concept of you're being controlled, you're always at the back of your mind going to say, well, then that means something, right? If he was, living his life as a character in the book, that happened, and maybe after they mentioned that there was some sort of control, then you would be like, oh, maybe the previous actions were because of that, but he would at least be built up as an actually cruel character.
Yeah.
And I feel, again, I honestly think that this all comes down to the fact that this is written lengthwise as a young adult novel. This really just could have used more exposition, more character development, more showing. Like, you could have had an interaction between the Dane twins telling Holland.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
We could have had that scene, and then you could see...
leave no threads, leave no trace.
Yeah, or
kill anyone that you come into contact with or something,
Yeah.
Don't leave any evidence you were there.
You could see the relationship there, or because the only thing that we see for them, which I guess is an echo of that scene, would be when Holland walks on the brother, like the twin brother, who's branding this kid who was like really spunky, and for whatever reason, Spunky Kid gets like an entire backstory to how he got into that situation, except he's killed off later anyway.
Yep.
So it's honestly, it feels like, oh, okay, it really falls into the trope of anime, honestly, like a really, really short anime where it's kind of like, oh, it's so short that we have to give the exposition for this character literally in the episode that we're killing them off, where every episode that happens, you're like, oh, he's gonna die, because we're all of a sudden we're getting his backstory, so we're supposed to care about him. That is literally what happened in this book, personally, like what I think. So yeah.
There's no characters from White London. There is none. They're all gone.
There is, okay, so favorite scene though, I do have one, and I'm really excited to see how this plays out, and this is probably the reason that I want to read the second books, and that is, or like the second and third book, and that is the soul bond, so not the binding, but the soul bond now between Rai and Kel. I honestly think that has so much potential. And I'm going to be so disappointed, aren't I? If that is not the way it is. But I personally think that is a really cool concept that they've introduced. And I would say it's a dangerous concept in the sense of, we thought that when he did that, it was because of the rock. But when the rock gets thrown away and we find out that Rai's still alive, it says, well, no, it actually is his own magic that did that, which is fair enough. And I also think that there has to be obviously some sort of meaning to, Rai feeling what he does and Kel feeling the exact, so, they're like, they're soul bound, essentially.
Yep. I want to know the consequences.
Yeah, basically.
Like...
so yeah,
Should we get on to like what we'd expect if there was another book? But there is another book.
Let's go that. Let's talk about that. Yeah, because I'm already talking about that. But yeah, but before that, is that your favorite scene or not? Or what would you say was the scene where you were like, oh, well, no, you talked about the fight scene. Okay, yeah. So, what do we expect from the next books?
I expect there'll be, before the next one, some sort of time skip. Lily has just left on a boat. I have issues with that, by the way. I think that's, she's talked about wanting to be a pirate and sail and stuff, but arguably she's a cutthroat from the streets of Windsor. Like, does she know anything about sailing? I live next to the Thames. It's got barges on it. It's not very deep, and there's bugger all wind. She's gonna have a great time at sea. She's gonna instantly be captain. No, I don't think that's gonna happen. I hope they explain her like making her way up the ranks of sailing and learning the ropes and getting. But also, she doesn't know any like of the Red London language. She just knows posh English, which only the royals knew.
Yeah, that's
How's
true.
she gonna get on? She's not gonna be able to communicate with any of the sailors. She's gonna have to learn a language. It'll be like being like
that's true.
someone fresh off the boat in a new country trying to build their life there. It's gonna be crazy, and she doesn't know the language.
That's very, very true, actually.
But like, there has to be a time skip, I think. If they're going to bring her back, which they spent so much time developing her that they better do, because we're out of characters.
Yeah, we're literally nobody else.
Kel, I think, hopefully they explore some of the consequences of Red London and flesh out Red London more. It was the most interesting of them because they spent most time there. But I still can't picture, like, I can picture the streets a little bit, but that was during the parade and the palace and the fact that the river was a certain color. Like, it's hard. Like, so I hope they spend more time there with some of the political fallout of the abuse of magic and what happened to the public and rebuilding relations with Rye and Kel, and exploring maybe a bit of Kel's backstory, like that he feels like forced adopted, but he knows that his family actually do love him.
He has the memory soul mark, actually, so we know that his memories are locked away, so obviously that's important. But
so please explore that. I don't know. I think the next book hopefully deals with the fallout of the fact that White London doesn't have a ruler anymore. Like, are they going to establish, connections with the next person there, or like develop it in any sort of way? Or is it just now like, left? It'd be like, it's Black London, really. We're gonna only go to Grey London now, I hope they explore more of Grey London, but I think that'll be a long time off because they didn't bother setting anything up there apart from the fact that the royals are kind of hungry for power, or feel a bit left out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's. I could see the next book just being about like the implications of how they left things in this book of the fact that they've sent Holland to Black London. That's not going to have any problems whatsoever. They've also, using the stone, presumably were punching holes in the world in a way that they don't usually do to travel between worlds.
Yeah,
like
that's
it
true.
Seemed like they were describing it as being a little bit abnormal. Maybe that'll have consequences, like magic is finding its way, that the raw magic, 100% magic, is finding its way to leech across the worlds again. Maybe it'll affect White London, and then they start exploring that, and then that makes its way to more problems for Red London. Who knows?
Yeah.
But they haven't left much for us to, which is, it's weird because I initially pegged this book to be one where they definitely had a trilogy in mind whilst writing it because they had such an idea, but it might instead be the case that they had enough of a world in mind to make 3 books, but not enough characters and plot, thread, stuff to fill that world with. They had 1 book's worth. They wanted to see how it would do, and then they kept doing it, and they left just enough to make you go that we can explore this in the next book, but not enough, I think, in my opinion. I literally have no idea what will be in the next book. That's the thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't even think about it, but I agree with you about Lila, actually, is that there's better be some really, really good explanation in how she gets good at the language / seafaring skills if that's the way that they're going to go, because otherwise it's just unbelievable. And if you say, oh, she's abnormally talented, please. Please. That is, I think that's a trope that needs to, it's a bit, actually, I would say, I don't want to use the word toxic, but like as readers, having overpowered characters is also, I would say, I don't want to say damaging to the readers, but I personally find it a bit like, you want the character to be strong. You want a character you can strive to be, right? You want to be like that adventurous or that charismatic or that brilliant, etc. And when you have characters which are just overpowered, which are impossible as a whole. And the thing is, you can say, well, yeah, you have characters with magic. Obviously, you're never going to be that. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like actual personal attributes. And somebody who is immediately good at something, can, you know, learn a language off the top of their head. Nobody in human history exists like that. There obviously are polyglots. They're obviously geniuses. They're obviously people who are very, very talented and capable. But I'm reading about the history of Amsterdam, and I just found out that Rembrandt, who is, you know, world famous painter, multiple masterpieces, he was a homebody. He lived on 4 or like 5 blocks in Amsterdam. He traveled not at all. He lived in like a 4x4 block of streets his entire life. So yes, he's a genius, but there's always a drawback. Yet when we have characters who don't have any drawbacks, it's kind of like, well, I don't have anything to relate to me because I'm a flawed individual. And that's kind of where, you know, Lilla is, maybe that's why I don't like her, because all of a sudden she's going to be like a captain, and then we're going to find out that she's a secret Antari on top of that, which I highly suspect that she's going to be the Antari of the Grey World that, you know, had the eye that was like gorged out when she was young, and which has its own implications, because Antari magic, the way I understood, is blood magic. Therefore, the eye is just a representation of that. Like, you know, it's just a visual thing. It's not in any way, shape, or form cutting your magic off fully. So she's obviously going to be magic in some way, maybe. Yeah, so I personally am here for the Rye Kel like spirit bond. I want to see consequences from that. I want to see Holland again, and I'm hoping that Holland doesn't come back as Voldemort, although I highly suspect that he's going to like attract some magic. Or, you know, let's go positive and say, well, no. Kel, I was going to say the Black London is going to find a way to break his spirit bond, but it's already broken because Kel did that.
Yeah, the Danes are dead.
So maybe positively, Holland is actually going to come back as new guy, like new reformed guy. Maybe we're going to find Antari from Black London. Maybe Black London is kind of thriving, or there's some sort of like civilization there that is just, they're blocked off from the world, which potentially I think that would be interesting. But I do agree with you that so far we have... Honestly, some of the 2 most described things that I remember from the book was that fight that you mentioned, and the fact that their bedrooms, like the kings, queens, Rise, and Kel's, they're like the 4 times of day, and I found that cool. That and his coat, and even then we don't really know what Kel looks like.
Yep.
Yeah. So I honestly I want more flesh. I want more behind this world. I want to feel more for these characters. Yeah. And see more of that coat, because I like the coat. I think the coat is probably like the thing that kept me going for like 50 pages until we got to some sort of, you know, past Lilla Bard and her boat, because that was oof. Yeah, so that's me, I guess. Are we reading the second book? That's I guess the question that we should answer. Are we going to do a part 2 of this for the second book?
Yes. Just because I want to know what happens. I want to know if I'm right as well. I want to know, you know, I like it. I want to know if they can salvage bits of it. I want more of the Londons and not just one place, one pub, one room. Give me more. Describe the world. What are the politics? Great London is supposed to be, our world, sort of.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything about it. We can only assume that it's based, like, during the Georgian times.
Yeah.
And you can expect, like, the same, world politics to be going on, different wars, different conquests,
Yeah.
what's going on.
So we definitely reading it. I guess we're not reading it in December because, this video is probably going to be out in December, like the first dates of December. But for that, we're reading the book that you sent me, which is, remind me the title if you remember.
I believe
Something River. I know it's Something River. I looked at it briefly. It seemed really cool.
I have put it on my desk.
You can go get it. Well, I'm basically going to talk about the fact that if you would like to join us reading these books, because currently we have a little tiny book club, you can join every month for whatever book we pick. You can also give your recommendations, and that's going to be in the description if you would like to join the Discord server for this channel. So don't be afraid to come on in, join us, and then we can sit all and discuss, and you could be, featured in the next. No, I'm joking, but you could come and you could talk about this and rant with us about these books. But yes, Johnny's back with the book for December. What are we reading?
It's called Once Upon a River. I don't know if this is going to be mirrored. It's by Diane Setterfield. It was a bestseller. I spotted it and I kind of really liked the premise.
Yeah.
It's a sort of mystery based, again, along the Thames.
Oh yeah, water.
It was on my mind, and it's sort of based in our reality. It's a sort of adult fantasy, adult fiction, with some fantasy elements, but I think it's more realistic, ground-based mystery.
Magical realism. I think that's
And it's about exploring, something that's sort of oddly haunting and mysterious. And I've just read nothing but good reviews about it, so I was like,
okay, I'm looking forward to it.
So
I'm super excited actually, because gotta have that nice book for December. But yeah, so we're going to be reading this book for December. Maybe, I'm not sure if I want to start off with book 2 for January. I feel like we need to start off 2021 with like a good, nice, punchy book. So maybe February. I'm feeling like February is like that kind of month as well that we might read the second part. Like that seems, good to prep as well. And I would say it would be good to test the longevity of how much of the first book sticks with us in like the next 2 months, to see, because I don't want to reread the first book going into the second one. I feel one of the things that is super important is that a good sequel doesn't force you to reread the first book completely. So I feel like February might be a good ETA for the next part of this. But yeah, as I mentioned, if you want to come and join us, we're also part of a writing club on the Discord server that you'll find in the description. And there we're just having a bunch of fun trying to create our own ideas. Johnny, what was your experience so far? Give us a review of your experience with the writing club.
It's good fun. It's got me being more creative. I don't tend to write too much. I just write my own sort of field notes and things usually, but since doing this, I've started up lots of different ideas. I do enjoy the prompts. It helps you try and work on your descriptive writing versus dialogue versus scene setting. It helps you work out your flaws, so it's good fun.
Yeah. Plus we also have Kieran and Becca, also 2 other YouTubers that also join us in our little endeavor, and I think it's very fun. I just find that the more people you have, the more ways of you can bounce ideas off, so it's good. But anyway, I guess I gotta go. why the videos have been so sparse is I've had a lot of assignments and deadlines all crammed into the last week and a half, so I got to finish off another assignment, but more videos in December. You're probably going to see Jonny more for the next review of the book at the end of December, so I guess we're gonna end that here and have catch
you. Lovely December.
Yeah, have a nice December. Keep warm.